Good evening and welcome to your Mouse Tits.
No, so we are here to do a podcast about Batman.
We're here to do a podcast, and this week it's going to be about Batman because it's fresh in our old fucking brains because we just went to see the Batman, the fucking man, Robbie Pattinson. For the
he's come a long way. I've been defending him since The Lighthouse, but we're going to get into that.
That wasn't that long. That wasn't that long ago. Come on.
This is first pilot trial, whatever you want to call it, episode of, for now, Munchy Box podcast. It's got a stupid name. We will explain why.
No,
do you want to keep it a mystery?
No, there is not. I don't think there's a reason behind the name unless you're going to invent some lore here, but Munchy Boxes are fucking great.
Well, yeah.
This is going to be fucking great.
This is free advertising for Munchy Boxes. I wonder...
Need advertising. Have you seen Scotland?
Not
Munchy Boxes are fucking... Scotland's an advert for Munchy Boxes, if anything.
Well, yeah. It's one of the reasons I moved.
Tell me, why is it called Munchy Box?
Because we have a tradition of going to a movie and then going to a food and talking about the movie. So I figured just record it and subject other people to that talking.
Like the poor waitress in China Buffet King. Do you know what I think about fucking Batman, Hen?
That's why it closed down.
Nothing to do with the fucking health code violations.
Close it. We're going Taiwanese now.
The fucking prawn ball sitting in the fucking heater for 12 hours. I'm sure that wasn't the problem. It was us talking about fucking shit.
R.I.P. Buffet King. Yeah, I told you it turned into like a Thai place.
Thai Buffet King?
It's not a buffet. It's an attempt to do a nice restaurant on Union Street.
Oh no!
In between where all the junkies hang out and where all the junkies hang out.
We found our niche. In between your next heroin dose, know what I mean?
Well, that's why King Buffet worked, or Buffet King. I'm gonna get it wrong, because it was perfectly placed for trash buffet food.
In Glasgow, China Buffet King, there was buffet places before, Pizza Hut buffet, pretty much. But down south, where you're from, I hope you don't mind me saying, and people might have worked that out by now. Okay. I know you're sorry for it, but do you have a chain of buffet places? Because China Buffet King was the first Glasgow chain of buffet places that I could remember. Not
that I'm aware of. They are not as advertised or as open. You just go to a Chinese restaurant normally that's a buffet or something it's.
But you had carveries, don't you? So it's just a fucking trough.
Carveries, lot of shit like that. If you found a good buffet place, you really did hold it to heart. There was a place, I think it was called Wontons. Wontons in Taunton. That's a lot of T's. But that was an amazing buffet. That was like Buffet King, except the owner was this angry Chinese woman who would demand that you at least finish your plate.
Oh.
I mean, it's expected, but you've never had someone hover next to the table and angrily stare and demean you until you eat. Which, thanks therapy.
Well, what if, going back to Munchy Boxes, would you not be raging if you paid you put out a great Munchy Box platter for every cunt and nobody ate it? I suppose the benefit of a Munchy Box is you can reheat that shit and have it whenever. But you've put out money for a Munchy Box and nobody's even had a wee pick at the chips. Fucking hell, man, I'd be raging. Wasted on my food. These Japanese, they're more raging than Scottish people.
They eventually closed down, so I think their problem was...
Japan shut?
No, not Japan. Wontons, they got turned into a charity. And the hairdressers, no. Estate agents. A lot of things.
A charity hairdressers with a estate agent. You go in and get a fucking haircut off a trainee and they put you into some homeless housing.
That sounds like a deal.
One-stop shop for fucking 20.
I'm not going to lie. I could use that right now. I'm looking like episode 2 Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, if I was to describe you right now, you're a very roguish gentleman. You do have the Han Solo vest, but you did have your belly popping out the bottom. Han Solo was past it.
Yeah, so we got on a huge tangent about the reasoning was we eat and talk. So we are going to eat in a bit, but we are going to talk about this week or this month or however long till I could be asked to do another one of these.
Munchy Box is on the way. I'm happy to say that.
It's been ordered. It's been acquired. There's a pizza box. I'm going to have to explain this because there are some people that I know that are probably going to listen to this at least, and they're from England, and we just don't have Munchy Boxes. We don't have Munchy Boxes down there.
What's your closest thing you can equate to a Munchy Box?
It's there's nothing like it, mate.
There is not. But you've got nothing in England.
No, like you have all the normal takeaways, your chip shops, your curry houses, your kebab houses, whatever. You just don't have the concept of amalgamating it all. You have to do it yourself. You have to buy all the requisite pieces and make yourself a platter. So that's what most people do. They just order a bunch of stuff from the takeaway. A burger, some chicken, some chips. My mum used to do a thing where she'd order from the Chinese. And she'd get like chicken balls, curry, rice, bunch of stuff that you essentially would get in like a curry-based Munchy Box up here.
Mm-hmm.
But it costs you like 25 quid because you're buying all the pieces separately unless it's part of a set deal. You're not getting it.
Scotland has streamlined this process. Like I don't know, when I'm on Just Eat and I'm looking to order some food, like I want a bit of this, I want a bit of that. Oh, I could do with that as well, and you end up with your 25 quid bill.
Yeah.
The kebab shops have absolutely streamlined this process. Like, you want a fucking bit of everything. Now, this isn't your fucking granda's sharing platter that you would get at a fucking Pizza Hut. No. Not at all. This is, right, we have a pizza box and we're going to fill this with the classic kebab shop ingredients. So you've got your chips, you've got your doner meat, you've got your range of pakoras from around the world.
Again, pakora is not really a thing down there.
You don't get pakora?
No.
You'll
get like chicken goujons or chicken bites or chicken bits or whatever. You'll get like some mozzarella sticks. You get the usual fare. Just like a pakora is not, because a pakora is many things. A pakora is a vague idea of a thing.
It's a battered thing.
Like unless you go into like a curry house, you're not going to encounter pakoras down south.
But a pakora is like, you can get chicken pakora, you can get vegetable pakora, you can get haggis pakora, which is fucking bombing, man. Mushroom pakora. Holy shit, man, you can put anything in pakora. It's just a spicy batter and it comes with a spicy sauce and you dip it in.
Yeah, so it's kind of like tempura in terms of being like a batter. I only know that word because it's on the fucking bird's eye chicken slices you get that are in tempura batter, and they're like,
Captain Birdseye fucking in the Pacific, fuck's sake.
It's thank you learned on his many sails. But yeah, so like the idea of a Munchy Box, a pizza box, the same pizza box you would get like a shitty takeaway pizza in, but stuffed full of all of these things, some chips. You normally get like a bag of wet salad.
Yeah.
That's sometimes in the box. Sometimes they give you the luxury of it just being on the top so you can instantly bin it. You get, again, pakora sauce, which is something I've not fucked with, but apparently it's this, as you were saying, a pink sauce.
Yeah, so because you've got pakora and because you've got kebab meat, they'll usually give you one tub of each. So you get one tub of kebab sauce.
Which is kind of like a chili sauce.
I hope that down south you at least have kebab sauce.
Depends what you mean. If you go into a kebab, like the default thing is like chili sauce.
It's a red spicy sauce.
So it's presumably.
But it's not like your chili sauce out of a bottle or like your sweet chili sauce that you would dip a fucking chicken select into, man.
No, it's like a creamy.
No, it's like a watery red spicy sauce. Probably too much for you and your English sensibilities.
I can handle spice, you fucker.
That's the sauce for your kebab meat. Then you've got your extra little tub of sauce for your pakora. Now, sometimes people will try and rip you off and give you 2 tubs of kebab meat, but no, you want 2 tubs of kebab sauce. You want 1 tub of kebab sauce, 1 tub of pakora sauce, and your pakora sauce is a mild spice pink yogurt-based sauce, and it's the fucking tits, and it's the best thing to ever be delivered into my mouth by another hairy Asian man.
Well, again, I've never tried it. I'm drawing the line at haggis pakora. I'm sorry, but that's too much for me.
No, you can get doner meat pakora. You can get black pudding pakora.
Yeah, like I say, it's a way of life. It's an idea. It's a state of being.
Man, deep fry anything. Fucking put it in your mouth.
We went over this. We're still going on about Munchy Boxes, I'm afraid, but the fact that like burgers and everything come like as default battered.
That's my chip shop.
Yeah. That blew my mind because one night we got very drunk and I got a takeaway for the way home. So I ordered a cheeseburger and chips because you can't go wrong with a takeaway cheeseburger and chips, right?
Oh.
So I get it. It's in its little like package, swaddling like a baby. I take it onto the bus. Away we go. Unwrap it. Open up the box. There's just some chips and a battered burger.
Yep.
No roll.
No,
nothing. Just chips and a battered burger. And I sat there for a good 5 minutes just staring at this thing like, what did I do wrong?
Was it good though?
Did I ask for this?
It was good though.
The tragedy of this story is I fell asleep despite being quite angry, which is an impressive trait of mine.
I'm so angry I'm going to go for a nap.
I was very drunk. I fall asleep, bus gets to the end of the route, and one of the luxuries of being in the fucking like sheltered housing I was in at the time was the bus. The end of the bus route was my block of flats. It's the end of the town. Past that is just like hills and locks. So I get woken up by the bus driver kicking me off the bus so he can go home. I get up, get off the bus, stumble towards my flat. Bus drives away. Realise I left the fucking takeaway on the bus seat. So that bus driver got a free dinner.
What do you think about Scottish bus drivers that they're eating fucking chippies that are left on the bus?
Still wrapped, my friend. I rewrapped it. I rewrapped it. I was so angry. I was like, I'm just going to put this away.
Was that the night that we were at the party in the fucking Orange Lodge?
I think so.
When I arrived that night, you were fucking angry. Because I arrived like an hour and a half, 2 hours after you. I got in the car, you were fucking raging, man.
Yeah.
You're like, are these cunts in here fucking? Nearly smashed that cunt. I was like, you're turning Scottish already, it's beautiful.
I was stuck in a lodge full of prods. What do you want?
No, chippies you can get, like, I know square sausage is a pretty Scottish thing. Do you not get square sausage down south?
You do, but
you can get a deep fried.
You gotta look for it.
You can get a deep fried and battered square sausage in a chippy. And I said, your chippies are shit, but like you have got like fish and chip shops where it sells fish and chips.
Fish and chips, and then you have the hot plate, which is full of like the fish and chip stuff. So battered sausage, mysterious pies. If you're lucky, they're pucker.
Mystery pie.
Like some sort of.
Oh, the mystery pie is done in the fryer.
Yeah.
Oh, so you've at least got that.
Wait, no, the pies are done in the microwave normally.
Right. So I'm going to do the quick fire round.
At least they're pre-cooked and then they microwave them for a bit and then give them to you. But if they're pucker pies, they're normally fine.
Oh, we need to do the quick fire round here. I'll tell you what is sold in a Scottish chip shop, and you tell me if an English chip shop does it. Right?
Okay, yeah.
So fish.
Yes, obviously.
Special fish.
It depends.
Do you know what special fish is?
No.
Special fish is done in breadcrumbs instead of batter.
Yeah, you'll get that in place.
But you need to ask for a special fish because they'll never get
special fish, though. It would be like labelled as like breadcrumbs fresh.
You never get a special fish sitting in the chip shop window.
It has to be done.
You need to ask for it, which is good. So it means you'll get fresh fish.
It's the below the secret McDonald's below the counter menu.
You get sausage suppers like battered sausage,
jumbo sausage. Yep, that's standard.
King rib.
Yep.
You get king rib?
You get king rib. They're normally combated as well.
Oh, maybe England isn't the fucking backwards country I thought it was.
We have a few
creature comforts. And up here we've got a selection of pies. You've got Scotch pie, which is like your steak pie.
You have steak pie.
Steak pie in Scotland it isn't battered. It's just cooked in the fryer. And it's fucking dynamite.
See, that does sound like pretty fucking good.
I asked the guy in the chippy once, because I used to be quite friendly with a local chippy guy, and I went, would you put batter on a steak pie? And he went, it wouldn't work, big man. Trust me. Why not? For science? He went, no mate, I've tried it. It just traps all the grease in. You don't want that. So, but no, you'll get an actual, like, you know, an ash, like an oval steak pie. You'll get one of those just done in a fryer. It's fucking excellent, man. Stick some beans on it. Chippies here do beans. Do you not just get peas or some shit?
You get some like mushy peas, or you might get some beans, but like sides are real. Coleslaw is a thing.
For a chippy?
Yeah.
That's a hate crime.
Yeah, I know. I'm biased because where I used to live way down south, We had a really good chippy, but it was like a chippy combination Chinese.
Never good for both parties.
No, it was banging.
No,
Like,
the chippy chips are the best.
And I say that in like they did a couple of Chinese things, and they were Chinese people,
Right.
but it was essentially just a chip shop.
Was it run by a Chinese guy called Dave?
It was run by an amazing Chinese family who had run it for like 30 years, and they had all of the fake money notes that they'd ever been given taped above the thing.
Was that important?
Yeah.
I imagine that papered the fucking wall then. Jesus Christ.
And then you went up the hill a little bit to the actual kind of little shitty takeaway Chinese place, and they did your fucking chow mein, your Chinese dishes, if you will.
So Chinese.
So if you wanted a good night, you'd hit up the chip shop, get the Chinese, and then be going on.
I don't know if there's a name for this, but you ever had one of those nights where, like, I don't know what I fancy. Do I fancy an Indian, a Chinese, and a chippy? And you go to all three. Oh man,
Those a fucking bingo, mate.
those are the days. That's a full fucking house, man. I'm gonna get a curry at the Indian. I'm gonna get.
When you're really specific, you're like, I want this dish and this dish and this dish.
I taken pattaya once on a garlic naan with salt and chili chips from the Chinese and a deep fried pizza at the chippy. The Holy Trinity. Oh, in fact, chippies down south, deep fried pizza.
Nope.
Right. We're 2 steps ahead on this one because we not only do deep fried pizza, but we do battered deep fried pizza. Holy shit. Is that the Munchy Box? I've just realised, how long have we been recording for? You've not introduced yourself, like, by name.
Neither of you.
I don't have a name. I'm the Scottish one. Everyone knows who you are. I don't need a name.
Fine. Like, we've explained what a Munchy Box is.
Big man Robert Pattinson was in 2022 The Batman.
Fear is a tool. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning.
Give me your fucking Adam Self plot summary.
Okay.
Or can you even summarise a fucking Batman
I can
film?
summarise it. We're going to go into spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Because we'll get into it, but I quite enjoyed it. But no, so The Batman is by fucking, what's the director's name? Robert Eggers? Or no, that's Lighthouse Man. It's Matt something?
Big Matt.
Big Matt.
A man directed Batman.
I should have noticed who the director. Matt Lees, I think it is. That rings a bell or something. I don't know. He's going to Google it now. But whilst he does that, I will explain that the new movie is a Batman movie. That's all you get. No, it's a Batman movie. He's an established Batman. He's been doing it for 1 or 2 years. It's left kind of vague. And now he's got a new villain in the form of the Riddler. And it's quite good. He fights the Riddler. He catches the Riddler. Things happen after that. They go into... Fuck it, I'm just going to go spoil it. So they basically condense all of the comic books, the Long Good Halloween, the Long Dark Halloween. Can't remember the exact title of it now. I should have written it down. But it's a Batman comic that's about the Calendar Man, who turned up in Suicide Squad for a hot second. Mm-hmm. And they also combine elements of kind of Year One and also elements of DMZ, which was the storyline where Gotham City gets a kind of natural disaster happen to it. And then Batman has to kind of help the survivors in the recovery of the city. So they take a lot of these separate kind of like Batman plots and weave them into a kind of story about a relatively new Batman coming up against his second villain, because it's kind of danced around in the movie that he has already dealt with the Joker at least. So we're seeing, like, you're not getting the fucking Waynes getting shot. You're thankfully it's just straight into the action, and essentially this new movie is about how much of a fucking weirdo Batman is.
It's like baby's first Batman released. Thing is, it's implied, though it's not implied. It's said that he's been at it for 2 years. But it still very much feels like he's got the training wheels on. He's still out on patrol, fucking leathering gangs are wee arseholes, you know what I mean? He's not in the high stakes supervillain game yet.
It's still in the kind of early days of being Batman, because there is, even with the amount of times Batman's been rebooted through either different media formats or the comics themselves, there's a kind of progression of Batman where he starts out new, and he's fighting mainly mob gangsters, and then there's a kind of escalation where the criminals become the Joker, these kind of outlandish villains, and he's fighting those guys. And then further along that road is when he gets Robin, and he kind of grows into more of a kind of patriarch for these bunch of other similar vigilantes. But this movie is still very much set in that kind of like, he's still learning how to do this thing. He will occasionally stall his car or fuck a Batman jump and just eat shit on the pavement.
Yeah, I take a lot of great joy in that scene where Batman's trying to escape from police custody and jumps up to the top of the highest tower of the police station, which looks like the fucking Resident Evil police station, and then pulls like the emergency cord in his batsuit, and it's like one of these batsuits where it's not got all your bells and whistles, everything's quite realistically built in.
Yeah, and it suddenly turns into one of those like squirrel base jumping suits.
Yeah, like a wingsuit. Like, it doesn't, like when you get the modern Batman films where he puts an electric current through his cape and it turns into a glider. No, it's none of that shit. He's pulling a fucking big lever in his suit.
And his suit just changes.
It inflates and turns into like a big, like one of those like fat guy sumo suits. But like a wingsuit built into it. And then, takes an absolute dive after the tallest tower of the police station.
With some very, I'm not going to lie, cheap-looking effect shots of him, like, flying. Like, the shots of him flying past stuff was good, but there was a particular shot where he's, like, flying towards the camera, and you've got the moving background, and it's very kind of like Hollywood. We put him on a green screen and just kind of move the background. It's like, that doesn't look real at all, lads.
I feel like during the whole COVID situation, any film that's come out has had some questionable CGI in it.
A lot of this film was filmed before.
But all the special effects are done in post. You can imagine that it's some guy getting a Teams meeting every day in a fucking house in the middle of nowhere, like, big man, why do the fucking graphics for the Batman? And he's like working without a lot of time or supervision. And I don't know, man, I feel like throughout lockdown the special effects, like, your computer generated.
Honestly, that was one of the only shots that I was like, that didn't look good. But the rest of the movie looked...
It wasn't a lot of special effects in it, man. It was pretty fucking practical as far as it went.
No, like, I enjoyed, like, most of the fights you could, like, see Batman doing the stuff. Like, it wasn't a lot of, like, that. I hate that kind of Bourne supremacy, fast-cutting, like, we want to make them... It's like, no, give me the long shots where it's like Old Boy, where you're just seeing him like go to town on a bunch of goons from like medium long range. That's always a good shot when you've just got Batman like going up against a bunch of dudes, and you get plenty of that in this film.
Well, that's how the film begins. So the film begins with you kind of get like shots of Gotham City as you've never seen it before. I see you've never seen it before. It looks like fucking old riddled New York, with the whole like under the U-train rails type stores and little dark alleys.
Yeah, they brought back the kind of elevated train, which is always a kind of screenwriting shorthand for like crime-ridden city.
We're in New York.
They did it in Joker very, very well, but in this one, it's
Yeah, it starts off with him like narrating. Like, yeah, that's for a wee bit. This is my Batman voice.
A full-on like Rorschach's journal, like October 29th. The city is full of scum.
Thursday, October 31st. The city streets are crowded for the holiday. Even with the rain.
And it's like Halloween. It's Halloween. People are in the streets. They're all in uniform, but I'm not. I'm just dressed as me. Type shit. And it opens up where I feel one of the stronger aspects of this film is a fight scene. It does a bit of narration. He's walking about the streets. You get some shots of people all over Gotham, New York Gotham, doing some crimes and shit, and they're always looking out in the shadows to see if Batman's there.
And there's like a lot of build up. You get a couple of separate scenes of like criminals doing stuff, and then seeing like the bat symbol in the sky, and then getting sketched out by like shadows and stuff. And it does a really good way of kind of like building up. Like criminals are starting to get fear of him.
At it for 2 years, I fucking hope so, man. But you see like one of your youth gangs, a bunch of like mod rocker looking guys wearing
Joker makeup, yeah.
I wouldn't say it's Joker makeup. It's very like the Crow makeup.
Skull of the Dead, like Los Dias Muertos.
White face paint with the blacked out eyes.
Yeah, like skull makeup, essentially.
And they're on one of the U trains, and they see they're kind of talking about their night's exploits, and they follow a guy off the train, kind of small.
Yeah, they got a guy with
Asian man.
They got a guy with half painted mask, and like the insinuation that it's like an initiation or something. He has to go get this guy. He has to happy slap him or something. They paint it as, and he's very reluctant to do so. But the whole gang go after him, and then it looks like he's about to get fucked up. And then the music starts. The one musical score this film has. But you need more than that, mate. I love you, Michael Giacchino. I referred to him before when we started recording. Like he's a great like jobbing composer. Like he does the new Star Trek movies. Like if you want someone to do a music soundtrack, that sounds alright, but you're not gonna have any interest in like listening to it by itself. Michael Giacchino's your guy. So he's done like a passable kind of like moody Batman piece. Problem is, it's the only piece they ever use for this Batman.
You've seen the trailer of the Batman. It is the booming score of the trailer stretched out over any scene the Batman is in for the entire fucking film. Man, and don't get me wrong, when you first hear it, that shit has got presence. But as it goes on, there's 3 bits of music in this film. There is the Batman theme. There is Ave Maria. And there's some romantic music whenever he meets Catwoman, and then the two of them are sharing the screen together.
Yeah, because they play it as kind of like an incel Batman, but there is a love interest in Catwoman because they kind of have to do that, I guess.
But yeah, it's because Catwoman's like such a strong woman, and she's encountering a very juvenile Batman. It just feels like he's like, oh my god, it's gonna jizz in his fucking pants.
Yeah, that's what I loved about it.
I mean, Zoe Kravitz is alright, man. Give me a woman with a crew cut, but it feels like he spent most of his time leathering fuck out of guys, and not spent a lot of time with the women, and it kind of shows that he's very kind of like stunted in his romantic developments.
In everything, like they really go with this Bruce Wayne that like he has completely kind of abandoned the Bruce Wayne aspect of himself. Really, like he's not doing the usual Bruce Wayne thing where he pretends to be like the fun, friendly, philanthropic playboy, and then he's secretly Batman on the side. This guy is Batman who has to be Bruce Wayne sometimes.
As I've mentioned to you, the Bruce Wayne that he is a fucking emo teenager.
Which is why I feel like it's deliberate. And I can understand you completely being like, I don't like this Batman, but it's a completely deliberate choice to have him listening to fucking Nirvana whilst he's doing his bat stuff in the Batcave. Like, it's...
Yeah. So, when he saves his first victim of this film, and he stops the Asian guy off of the train getting beat the fuck out.
And the guy's fear. Like,
Batman comes in that and fucking encounter. He's like, people's like, who the fuck are you? And he hits it with, I am vengeance. They're like, alright, big man, calm it down a bit. And see if he said that in Scotland, he'd get laughed at. But he gets laughed at in this one, to be fair, but he proceeds to beat the shit out of all these guys and then make his way back to his back cave, where he proceeds to listen to Nirvana, write in his Donnie Darko diary. and while he's still wearing his eye makeup and his emo haircut, where his hair just covers one of his eyes to show that he's scared of being just his Bruce Wayne self. And he's so comfortable with being Batman, and I'm not comfortable with being Bruce Wayne because I have to hide half of my face with my emo haircut. And I don't know, man.
He's not got rid of the eye makeup, so he looks like the Crow.
And to make things worse, Alfred walks in. He's like, so I'm a terrible paraphraser for films because I never usually remember the exact lines. But Alfred comes in, played by your fucking Andy Serkis, your Gollum man, and he's like, "All right, Bruce, what's happening? Did you have a good night? You've got stuff to do today, so how about you get ready for doing the Bruce Wayne shit today?" And he was like, "Shut up, Alfred! You're not my real dad." Which for me is just pinnacle emo teenager, and it really, for the rest of the film, I don't think Bruce Wayne recovers from the start of being like just a fucking edgelord emo teenager. Like, I can't think of the good words to describe it because I'm not a wordsmith. I'm a very simple man, but fuck me, it really starts off.
No, he's deliberately, they're absolutely, completely leaning into that kind of portrayal of him. Like, this is a Batman who canonically grew up as a teenager in like the late 2000s. Like, he was listening to My Chemical Romance and fucking all those awful bands. Fuck you if you don't like them. So they absolutely like portray it as like, yeah, he's an emo goth teen weirdo who has almost zero social skills and is just like moping around with long hair and not leaving the house during the day. And Andy Serkis, I went in not expecting to enjoy Andy Serkis's Alfred. I really like Jeremy Irons' Alfred, but I've got a weak spot for Jeremy Irons, so that's fair enough. Fucking Michael Caine nailed the role as kind of like, he's a butler, but he obviously knows some shady shit.
Yeah. The story about him being in, like, was it the SAS he was in or something?
Yeah, like that's something they introduced for the Nolan movies, but the fact that Alfred can handle himself. And they kind of lean into that more with fucking Andy Serkis, where he's like, yeah, I used to be in the service. I'm doing fucking Zodiac Killer puzzles just because I'm feeling like it. Like, yeah. But I kind of enjoyed his kind of Alfred who's more like, I really fucked this kid. Like, I really should have been more than just a weird fucking soldier who was hired to be a bodyguard, but now I'm a dad. Like, he played that very well. Like, the scene where Alfred gets letterbombed, he gets Ted Kaczynski'd at one point in the movie by the Riddler. And there's a whole... It's annoying because they set up a plot development only to have it resolved in this scene for emotional depth. Full spoilers, but at one point they say that they set up so Thomas Wayne was involved in a journalist's death. And a mobster, Bruce Wayne goes to a mobster, all emo-y in his club, who was played by John Turturro, which we're going to get into, don't worry. And he tells Bruce Wayne a lie. He goes to Alfred, and Alfred's like, nah, mate, it's not that way. Like, this is the truth. And they have a whole little scene, and it's just there to have him have a nice little character moment with Alfred. Because there's no other place in that movie where they are having anything kind of like a Alfred and Bruce relationship. They are very kind of distant.
The Alfred stuff doesn't get a lot of room to breathe in this one.
Like, Alfred is basically doing his homework on his own.
Alfred's in the background running, like, he seems like doing all the Bruce Wayne shit because this young Bruce Wayne can't handle it. But my counter argument to you, like, oh, well, he's just a starting out guy, he's not mastered the Bruce Wayne stuff yet. My counter argument to that is, he's been fighting people in the streets for 2 years. He must have been training before that to be the world's greatest detective and invent all of his fucking bat gadgets.
Oh, we'll get into them.
And all of his fucking fighting skills. Are you saying that in that period of time where he was learning to be Batman, he did not evolve from being an emo teenager?
I'm saying that his kind of focus on becoming Batman completely stunted his development.
Being in the army?
Like, it's an interesting take, like, we've never really seen on Batman before.
Uh-huh.
Like, don't get me wrong, and we're going to get into all the other versions of Batman, but I enjoy that this Batman is showing, like, yeah, he's a fucking social weirdo because he's completely obsessed about being vengeance, and he should have basically cut his fucking hair and turned up for a couple of board meetings and like worked that side of him. But he's completely ignored it to the point where he has Selena Kyle, fucking Catwoman, bending over in front of him, and he's like, because he's never even thought about that shit. He's too busy being like, I am the night, I am vengeance. And the whole movie, like at the end of the movie, he has to learn to be like, oh wait, I have to be more than just the fucking guy who beats up people at night. I have to be Batman, the leader, the savior. Because at the end of the movie, Riddler's planted a bunch of bombs and they all go off and the city gets flooded, which, like I say, is similar to a comic book storyline where Gotham gets kind of an earthquake, I think it is. That's when Lex Luthor is president. Comic books are stupid. But there's a whole scene where Batman has to lead some survivors out with a flare. And it's kind of played up as like a big dramatic moment. It's like, okay, so you're getting it. Which is why I argue to you that this film is a lot of setup. This definitely feels like them, right? Robert Pattinson wants to be Batman. We've got him. He's not going to fuck off. He's not going to shit the bed or quit or whatever. We're going to do a series. We're going to do it right. So we're going to do one good film that can be standalone. But at the same time, we will put in enough threads to set up a, like I say, an inevitable Batman and Robin movie, because the amount of times that they focus on this orphan child and Bruce Wayne like being like, I know your pain. I never want this to happen to anyone else again. It's like, that's the Robin story. So just go with it, guys.
No, I can certainly see the threads, but for a good positive in the film is they don't retell or re-show you the Bruce Wayne origin story. You don't see...
They do something new.
They don't show you, I'll give you that. They do something new, and they don't show you his parents getting shot in the alley by the gunman trying to rob them after they're going to see Mark of Zorro.
Mate, you have to remember, they were killed in October 2001, maybe 2002. They could have been going to see fucking Fast and the Furious. You think what trash was out? Ghost Ship.
Thomas Wayne's coming into the picture. It's like, that Vin Diesel boy's alright, man. I hope he has a good future in front of him.
Fucking, like, there's a lot of trash that they could have been going to see. But yeah, they don't, like, obviously, like, the death is important, but they don't flash back to it. You never get any kind of, slow motion shot of pearls on a fucking gun or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
that's the one that fucking boils my piss, man. See if I need to see one more thing of pearls get ripped.
It's the Spider-Man thing. It's like, we don't need to see Uncle Ben die. Just run with it. It's fine.
Uncle Ben's eating enough shit. Let him rest. But
Uncle Ben was also kind of a prick in that first movie, but that's a whole different tangent.
Uncle Ben alone.
He was just a grouchy old fucking prick being like, these computers are taking everyone's jobs. I'm going to sit around the house all day being unemployed.
Oh, that's really boiling Uncle Ben down to his essence.
But anyway, no, Batman. So yeah,
the catalyst for this one is the murder of the Gotham mayor by a very creepy military mask wearing Paul Dano playing the Riddler.
Yeah, who's leaning full into kind of like, okay, I'm going to be a Batman villain, so I get to do a weird voice.
Fucking kudos to Paul Dano. I don't know if you've seen any of his work, but he seems to have crafted a career out of playing someone that looks like a paedophile.
It's fantastic. He's absolutely nailed that niche of like, we need just a really gross looking weird dude.
Paul Dano is from your There Will Be Blood.
Yeah,
he's like the snake oil priest. He's your guy in Passengers with Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal.
I always remember
Passengers. Is it Prisoners?
Prisoners. Yeah, he plays the suspect paedophile,
the local simple boy.
I always remember him from Looper, where he plays the shithead friend who gets like chopped up in time. I don't know if you remember that scene, but it haunts me. The bit where they're like cutting him up in the past, so like the future version of him will like lose limbs and his nose.
Like torturing him.
He's like a fucking limbless torso by the end of it, and it's just like, Jesus fuck. God damn you, Ryan Johnson. I was just expecting a nice time travel movie, not this fucking existential horror where he's running down the street and he's falling apart like that fucking, I think it was a Basement Jaxx video with the Iceman. It might have been African Boombata. It doesn't matter.
It was African Boombata.
Yeah, because it was on a PS1 demo disc and I was like, what the fuck is this? It's the guy in that movie. That one fucked me up. But yeah, no. So Paul Dano, I always remember him from Looper, but he is like, if you need a weird dweeby looking guy, Steve Buscemi's too old these days.
Someone with a dirty blonde bowl cut and like a slightly chubby white face. And see, to be fair, he's looked like a young paedophile forever.
Yeah, it's incredible.
He's not aged.
He's like mid-30s now, and he still looks like a young dweeb.
He plays a heavy breathing Riddler, like quite a psychotic Riddler, not like a measured.
He's leaning towards the kind of like Heath Ledger Joker scale of kind of like, I'm going to play this character as like seriously fucked, but not in the Jared Leto like cringy fucked, and more the kind of like, okay, this guy's got problems.
I feel like sometimes in the film they do, like, I like Paul Dano's performance in this one, but sometimes it does get a little bit too close to Heath Ledger Joker with the speaking in quite a measured tone, then breaking into shouting. You're like,
Yeah.
And then there's a bit where like he sent a video of himself torturing one of his victims to a news channel, and it very much echoes the bit from The Dark Knight where they send in the clip to the news show and they play it, and he's like to the guy, "Look at me."
That did feel kind of like what worked.
Very much so, but it feels like, how else would you, and if you're using modern technology in a Batman film, how else would you show your character interacting with a victim? Are you going to cut away, or are you going to put him out like a social media post so everyone gets to see the level of fear?
Which is what they leaned into, because it turns out that this Riddler is a streamer.
I see this Riddler as a 4chan poster. Like,
this Riddler has almost 500 followers.
500 followers online. He's got them all wrapped up into a frenzy about how he sees the inequality.
And he's posting, like, he has this, like, super deep, like, I am the Riddler voice. And then, like, you watch, like, a video where he's posted to, like, his followers. And it's very much kind of like, hi, guys, thanks very much. Appreciate the follows and subscribes. Love the tip on detonators. And I just burst out laughing in the cinema because I was like, yes, this guy is fucking... Cheers for the Patreon, guys. It's really helped buy all these masks.
I was waiting for him to come in ads from Raid Shadow Legends, for fuck's sake. Yeah, but I think it's quite a... They've tried to modernise it, obviously, but it is quite a real fear of all these people that's just spending their life online.
It's a definite kind of allusion to the kind of like the alt-right and the kind of online radical movements, or whatever you want to call it these days.
Incel culture.
Yeah, like there's definitely a kind of hint of like the January 6th thing when people stormed the American Capitol. Like,
very much so.
They're taking stuff from that. It's all kind of percolated through the last couple of years. Like I said, it was a clunky line. Like, I don't mind them doing, like, you know, stuff in a Batman movie. Like I say, I'm very interested in how they've portrayed this Batman as a fucking weirdo boy. But it was a clunky line where Catwoman talks about like white privilege and stuff, and it's like you can't do white privilege stuff in a Batman storyline because it's Batman. The whole story is about how he's a fucking entitled multimillionaire. This whole story is about how he's an entitled multimillionaire, and the Riddler was stuck in a fucking orphanage where it was awful. Like, that's the Riddler's motivation. He was fucked by the state, and he sees Bruce Wayne and the hired officials of Gotham who have kind of turned to corruption as responsible for that. And
yeah, he does quite a powerful scene about how, like, Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne's father, was promising them all the world there was going to be real change, and then he died and nothing changed, and he was sat in the orphanage where he does a speech about a baby died every year in the orphanage because it was so cold. Like, that kind of like hits a bit.
He does that speech where... Does he do that speech when he's got the mask off?
He does that when he's been in the interrogation room with Batman.
Yeah. So the scenes where he has the mask off and he's being interrogated by Batman because he gets arrested, and then there's a whole scene where Batman interrogates him, and it's completely different from like the Joker interrogation from Nolan. Like, there is very much a thick pane of glass between them. They've learned from their mistakes. Batman is not allowed to roughhouse this guy, and to be fair, he looks like a guy who would break in half if Batman hit him once. Like, he's got like these old fucking pedo glasses on and a bowl cut, and he's like a forensic accountant. He is like an incredible, just like dweeb. But that's when he opens up to Batman, because he thinks, and what they do with this movie is they sell the Riddler as kind of being inspired by Batman, and all these people are kind of being kind of influenced by Batman becoming a thing. And the Riddler has kind of been inspired by Batman to take out the corrupt and stop the lies in the city. So he thinks the Batman is on his side. And there's this whole scene where the Batman is quickly like, nah, mate, you're fucking mental. And the Riddler goes into full kind of like autism, like, over it. And it's like, okay, we're doing something with this character. And then Batman leaves.
They try and do the mirror in it where, like, both of these people are orphans that have felt pain. But Bruce Wayne was in privilege and turned his pain into being fucking Batman. And then Paul Dano was left in poverty with his pain and became a fucking psychopath.
Yeah.
To be fair, he became a forensic accountant first, which I can't imagine is an easy job to get into. He must have get paid quite a lot of dough. But at the same time, you can see how they both dealt with their pain in entirely different ways.
Yeah, and that's the thing. All throughout this scene, he is kind of hating on Bruce Wayne because Bruce Wayne had all the money and he didn't. And at first you think that the Riddler has cottoned on that, yeah, Batman is Bruce Wayne. But then they kind of pull back from it.
Which I feel was a bit of a cop-out, man, because the whole...
Because it's literally like a minute-long scene where he's saying Bruce Wayne at him, and it's like, okay, so he knows. And then he goes, oh man, I really hate that Bruce Wayne. I'm glad you're not Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, but
it's like
a couple of minutes before he gets there. And do you not think it's funny that Robert Pattinson looks like he's we say Robert Pattinson, but Bruce Wayne, Batman, looks as if he's about to greet. Because
he's been rumbled, yeah.
He's been rumbled, and this guy's ripping apart how much of a piece of shit he is to his face. And you see his eyes watering until he goes, we nearly got him, didn't we? And Bruce Wayne, Batman eventually clicks on that he doesn't know he's Bruce Wayne. But there's so much foreshadowing towards it throughout the entire film.
They definitely feel like maybe they changed that in like editing or like post.
So, because it feels like it's an absolute There's a couple of fucking writing decisions in this film that I feel like are breakneck U-turns that you're like, what?
There's a couple of scenes that I definitely feel like were dropped in, like, okay. The Riddler Joker scene.
Yeah.
To describe it briefly, so the Riddler gets locked up in fucking, what is it, Arkham? The end of the movie's happening and the Batman is fighting like a bunch of Riddler followers from his fucking Instagram or whatever. So that's happening over in like whatever. After that happens, we cut back to Arkham where the Riddler is in prison and he gets another prisoner next to him, starts talking to him and they're being like making conversation, and it's heavily implied through fucking acting and dialogue that it's the Joker. And the Joker is like becoming, trying to make the Riddler an ally, or at least becoming friends with him, or fucking, I don't know, passing the time. He's breaking the bread. That scene serves no purpose whatsoever. Like, that is your post-credit scene. I argue that. Like, that is, cut that out, save 5 minutes on the movie, because it is a fucking long movie. It's 3 hours almost?
Yeah, it's a long boy, man. And I've seen it fucking.
And there's a couple of points at the end of the movie where you're like, okay, so we're done, right? Like, okay. The bit after like the big event happens and he's helped the survivors and he's looking up into the sky as Batman. I was like, oh shit, okay, we're done. No, he's got a whole scene where he drives through the necropolis with Catwoman. Which again just completely took me out of the film because like she drives off towards the Drygate Flats and it's like, man, where's she going?
So for those that don't know, one of the scenes of the Batman film,
and I'm surprised it was only the last scene basically. Like for all of the hype up here about it being filmed here.
Yep.
I think the scene where he was on the police building might have been up here as well, up on like fucking Union Street. Or
the only scene I could recognise was the scene at the end when they're driving through the graveyard. And
he leaves, and he's like, "Oh, okay, I guess she's gone." And then he leaves, and then they're just driving together.
It's what it reminded me of. That scene at the end, the Fast and the Furious and Paul Walker died, and Vin Diesel and Paul Walker are driving alongside each other, and then they go separate ways.
Incredible, same vibes, yeah, because they drive through the necropolis.
Yeah, I'll say that this film is, cinematically it looks very good. It looks very much like the old crime-riddled New York that when Times Square was a fucking shithole full of pimps.
Yeah, and they've done enough to kind of establish it as its own city. but it is heavily New York based.
The worst scene, the scene they used to film in Glasgow at the end, where Batman and Catwoman are going their separate ways after their adventure, I feel is the worst scene in the film, and it would be the one that's filmed in Glasgow. And the necropolis in Glasgow is beautiful. It's an old graveyard in the oldest part of the city centre, full of like old gravestones and a lot of greenery, a lot of kind of dead woods, and they filmed it at like the greyest part of the morning.
Oh yeah, they came in at like January and filmed it.
A layer of fucking grey mist over the place. Now, see if you go to that place when there's a bit of sunrise or sunset hitting it. It's beautiful, man. But they picked this one part to shoot in Glasgow, and it absolutely takes you out of the film, because I'm like, especially when you're from Glasgow, you're like, I think even if you're not from Glasgow, you can be like, that absolutely does not look like Gotham that they've been filming this.
That looks too wet and grey to be Gotham.
You know, in the Dark Knight trilogy, they had the Gotham from Batman Begins, and then they had a completely different Gotham the next two films.
Like the weird gothic Gotham with like the slums, and just turned it into, excuse me, Chicago for the third movie, and just New York for the third one.
No, but this one, like, this scene is like, it's a beautiful gothic place in Glasgow, but they chose to leave scummy, grimy, old New York City to go to gothic Glasgow. And it really, like, it just chaps my heart to me, because I'm from Glasgow and I can see this is good. I'd be interested to see if anyone else saw the film and went, this graveyard scene at the end seems well out of fucking place.
It does feel like, even like tonally and like palette wise and colour and everything, it feels different from the rest of the movie, which has been either night scenes or
there's a lot of like browns and
greys
and blacks, but this is just like complete greyness. Like
grass is not like it's
not popping.
No, you need to colour edit that, guys, because
I think you see grass in the entire film. Like there's no, like, because Gotham is a city, there's no greenery.
No, because he lives in fucking Bruce Tower now or whatever.
He doesn't live in Wayne Manor. He lives in his high school apartment.
He lives in this weird gothic skyscraper where all the rooms are quite tiny and all of the windows are incredibly intricate. It looked like the fucking House Atreides house windows.
If anyone's seen the Harry Potter films, Bruce Wayne's apartment in this looks like Dumbledore's office.
Oh yeah,
a lot of ornate hanging stuff from the ceiling.
There's an old lady there who's not Aunt Jemima.
There's an old lady.
I don't know who she is, but she's answering the phone, because when Alfred gets Ted Kaczynski, like there's an adorable scene where Batman is driving home really quickly because he's worried about Alfred, and he's trying to ring, and he gets the old lady on the phone. He's like, you best tell Alfred to watch out, like don't open any post. She's like, yeah, no, mate, that was an hour ago.
Fucking Riddler setting off your Johnny McCartney.
Like, when you see the to the Batman letter is in fireproof paper, throw whatever you're holding. Don't be all like, I guess I'll look under the wrapped package. No, just throw it. You're meant to be in the service, man. Like, you don't know what a letter bomb looks like?
This feels awfully like a bomb.
This is ticking. This is definitely ticking. I can smell the Semtex.
That's what brings Batman into the story, though. Like when the Riddler does his first murder of the film, and you see it, and it's, to be fair, it's quite a visceral murder.
Yeah, it's a proper kind of like they play the Riddler like the Zodiac Killer.
It's very animalistic. He's doing a lot of grunting and shouting as he's smacking the mayor over the head.
I don't know if you know this, but he was wearing the mask, which is an actual kind of. It's not a fetish thing. It's a
military winter mask.
Yeah, it's a U.S. Army cold weather mask. So you'd wear that when you were stationed in fucking like Alaska or something. You didn't want your
looks like the gunpowder of Pulp Fiction, though.
But it's used in a lot of fetish circles, shall we say? And in one of the Riddler's followers, like, hey guys, I know where we can buy the mask. It's right here, which I did enjoy because that is just film Twitter in a nutshell. But like underneath that mask, he apparently like wrapped his head completely in like cling film because he did that over all his fingers as well. He apparently like tried. Paul Dano's a weird dude, and I've not read many interviews or watched many interviews of him. But I read a couple before the Batman. He's talked like I didn't have sex for 2 weeks, and it's like okay.
I don't think that was a choice. I've never seen Paul Dano.
But like also he chose to like wrap his face, which is covered in another mask, which is designed for cold weather fucking environment. So as you can imagine, he almost passed out constantly because he was fucking just suffocating under this mask.
One of those method actor things that nobody's asking you to do that, Paul.
I mean, it's not as obnoxious as fucking Jared Leto sending you use condoms in the post, but it's like, yeah, dude, you don't need to do that. You already got the mask on. But they play it completely as like the Zodiac killer, so he's got like a Zodiac cipher. He's got his weird symbols. Yeah. He's got his like old man pedo glasses. You know, he's.
That's what plays into like this being less of a Batman film and more of a poor detective film, I would say. Like,
yeah,
because it's leaving envelopes at the crime scenes, and that's how Batman gets to go to the crime scene where the mayor's being killed. Commissioner Gordon, played by Jeffrey Wright, takes him in past all the police officers.
Had a few fun moments, but it was kind of wasted.
The police officers don't look really happy with Batman.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the kind of like how they're playing the Gordon and the police relationship.
Yep. He's getting in with Batman and nobody else likes him.
Gordon trusts him, and people trust Gordon, but they don't trust fucking Batman. And there's more than one scene where a police officer's like, mate, fuck off.
It's like being at your work button and somebody bringing in somebody to do your job.
Yeah, and Gordon's like, nah, he's soundmate. He's like, he's dressed like a fucking Batman.
He's dressed in like full body armour and the Robert Pattinson Batman helmet.
I saw him drive up to the place. I heard Nirvana come out of his fucking car. Like,
he walked his way in like, oh. But now this brings in the Batman, where aesthetically I quite like the Batman's look.
He's got a good suit.
He looks bulky.
It looks like, kind of like patchwork, which I kind of like.
Batman, the Frank Miller Batman, where he comes back as an old Batman.
Yeah, Batman Returns, yeah.
Where he's wearing like the armoured bat suit. It's like one of those ones.
He's got like gauntlets, which are kind of good. He's got the kind of Dark Knight style kind of like fins on his arms. And then he's got what look maybe it's part of the taser, but it just looks like metal rods.
Yeah, it's like metal, like kind of crossbow bolts that you would have that he would fire out his wee grappling gun. He's got those up his forearms, and yeah, I'm a big fan of the outfit. The only thing that kind of lets me down is the mask a wee bit. Whereas I think I've maybe got too used to the Christopher Nolan Batman.
His mask is more kind of like animated or comic book style, yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like it's been put in to accommodate Robert Pattinson's very round forehead, where Christian Bale had a very angled face in the Batman mask, where Robert Pattinson's got like a big rounded forehead. And I feel that Robert Pattinson's eyes are just a little bit too far apart from each other to rock a mask.
Yeah, no, that he has got slightly Sid from Ice Age eyes.
Definitely.
But you have to remember, like the Christian Bale batsuit. I'm obviously doing it with my hands for the listeners, but it was more of a kind of like goatee shape around his mouth.
Yeah,
and he had the chins and everything covered. Whereas Pattinson's is like all the way back to like almost sideburns level, when you're getting that full kind of like comic book lower face.
He does have that Batman jaw.
He's got the chin for it.
Oh, the chin.
Like when he's standing there looking like Batman, you're like, you look like Batman, mate. When he's standing there as Bruce Wayne with the hair, it's like you look like a dweeb. But
a lot of, you get those chin workouts where people just tense their jaw to work their jaw muscles. He looks like he's been doing a lot of that shit, man. Because throughout the scene, you see him outside of the bat suit as Bruce Wayne. He's wearing, there's one point where he's got no top on. He looks like quite a scrawny guy. But see, when he's in the bat suit, man, he looks like a fucking chunky boy, man.
Yeah, like you can tell it's probably a lot of armor,
yeah.
And he can take a fair few hits. To be fair, like
he gets shot so many fucking times in this film, but strangely, nothing ricochets into his jaw. Or
no,
there's
one shotgun. One shotgun at the end that really fucking put him down.
He get Uma Thurman to a Kill Bill, man. He get 2 barrels of a shotgun right into his chest. He is fucked.
I appreciated that Batman then spends the next 5 minutes just being like, fucking, has to get the adrenaline shot out, and then he takes the adrenaline shot and he proceeds to just turn this guy into pulp until everyone's like, fucking, get him off.
Throughout the whole film, though, like this is a visceral Batman. He is kicking ass. He's fucking hurting.
He's putting everything into it, yeah.
You revisit quite a few of his victims, like. At one point, when he's through his detective story, he goes to Penguin's club, and he's got a set of twins that answer the door, who My girlfriend told me it was the twins from Desperate Housewives for a little fucking.
Didn't realise they were actual twins. I just thought it was screen fuckery. But
Actual twins, and when he first goes to Penguin's nightclubs, he beats up the twins to gain entry to the club because obviously they don't let the Batman in because he's well trainers, bless them, and he's kind of getting and, as you see the film goes on, you revisit these twin characters a few times and a couple of other guys in the club, and they just get more beat up as the film goes on. As every encounter they have with Batman, they've got like fucking broken noses and like bust jaws and big swollen cheekbones and stuff. Like, this Batman is a visceral motherfucker.
Yeah, because like you said, there's a whole scene where Batman goes to Penguin's club for the first time and just fights about 20 dudes.
The film, because like Blade, like I like a nightclub scene in a film.
John Wick,
John Wick.
You can have some like it feels good.
See when you've got some techno music, and see when you first go into the club, it's like a big warehouse club.
Mix is great.
So fucking long. The music's pumping.
Sounds like you're in a club.
Yeah. And you can actually see him when he's bounding into the club. He's got like a bounce in his step, and it kind of looks like he's walking to the music. I appreciate someone on YouTube.
Again, like a more normal, serious Batman, I'd be like, no, they just fucked up. But that Batman, I'm like, he's into that. He's like fucking.
He's like, yeah, scooter boy. But no,
throwing dudes over fucking.
He wrecks shit in that club, man. Like, he does a move throughout the film that I think they kind of overdo a wee bit, but he shoots his grappling hook through someone's leg. He does that a couple of times throughout the film. I think it's a wee bit overused.
I mean, it's golden though.
See all his other moves in the film. Like, he's not doing your Christian Bale Batman was doing a lot of Krav Maga where he's keeping his limbs.
That's what I would argue. Like, he's not trained. I don't think. Like,
very visceral. Like, he's beating the shit out of
I think he's like had Alfred being like, okay, so this is how you fight in the SAS, but I don't think he's been like trained by.
That's what I'm saying. Christian Bale Batman was like the Israeli Special Forces moves, the Krav Maga, which is designed to deal with an armed opponent when you're unarmed.
Oh yeah,
how you disarm and beat the shit out of someone.
And they kind of
he's not.
They retcon that into being like the League of Shadows like fighting style. But
he's kicking people in the fucking chest. He's hitting big haymakers from down south, fucking stuff along.
He's getting like a fucking baseball bat to the back, and then he's like righteously being like, "What the fuck, mate?" and then going for him.
That's a really Arkham move. Let's see the Arkham games where someone comes at him with a metal pole. And he hits the counter attack button and just whips the metal pole off the guy and scuds him round the jaw with it. You're like, oh, you bastard, you.
But yeah, no, he absolutely sells like the physicality of Batman. And I don't think we've covered it yet, but yeah, Colin Farrell is the Penguin.
Yeah, Penguin's Club, and that's when you first meet Colin Farrell as the Penguin.
Who is just unrecognisable. Like,
absolutely.
If someone didn't tell you it was Colin Farrell, you would not know.
No. He looks like a balding, receded hairline, scars in the face, big fat suit wearing bastard, man.
He's playing a kind of like, not quite Dick Tracy, but kind of like cheesy mobster guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it works. He's a good character, like he plays it very well. There's a couple of lines where it's like, oh, I see you got that kind of like Colin Farrell wit behind the mask. Like,
there's a lot of New York speak. There's like, hey, what you doing here?
Yeah, he's a real fucking like, Batman. You're a wise guy. He's like Sopranos level fucking mobster, and they play him like that. And I wanted to bring him up because that also brings up the chase scene, which was in the trailers, which involves the car. Which I thought the chase scene was a bit overlong, but good. I loved the Batmobile.
It was like a big fucking muscle car with a SpaceX rocket launcher jet boost in the back.
Yeah, no, I mentioned to you when we came out, it reminded me of the Darwin Awards. There was the Darwin Awards is like a award for people who die in incredibly stupid ways.
Yeah.
There was a Darwin Award for a guy who attached a JATO, which is a jet-assisted takeoff. It's a rocket they attach to like huge cargo planes to get them to take off in conflict zones where you don't want them going down the runway. So it's just a big fucking rocket that you in solid state or whatever, and it's just one of those. Someone's just stuck those in the back of a muscle car and been like, "Yeah, that looks good." And like this is the thing. Like for half of the movie, Batman is he's getting places by bike. Essentially, he's got a motorbike, and they do something that we've rarely seen in. I don't think we've ever seen in live action Batman, which is they do it in the comics quite a lot. But Batman being like a peeping Tom sneaker. like just going around with like a baseball cap and being low key and like scouting out people, not as Batman, but not as Bruce Wayne either.
I know it's a comic book film, right? But those scenes where he goes from a couple of scenes where he goes from hoodie wearing, face mask up, dressed casual Bruce Wayne, stalking people on the streets to the Batman. Now, we've seen that Batman outfit. It is a fucking big suit of armour. It's not Spider-Man where you can pack your fucking Lycra suit in a rucksack and carry it about with you.
He's not getting in that backpack, no.
You're not getting out in that outfit without help.
The only way I can kind of headcanon that is all of the clothes he wears as, like, sneaking Bruce, you know, special edition unlockable kit, is quite baggy. So I could argue maybe that he's just, like, thrown on, like, a pair of trackies and a jumper over the bat suit.
See, because Robert Pattinson is not a buff man in this, he just looks like Robert Pattinson wearing a hoodie and shit. He doesn't look like he's wearing a lot of chunky stuff underneath.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. I know it's big, like it's not fitting on that little cracking like backpack he's got on. And yeah, like he's getting up to a lot of places as a like motorcycle, like looks like a motorcycle courier or whatever. He's got a stupid like motocross helmet or whatever.
Yeah, it's not like your Dark Knight big Batman bike with big
chocolate
wheels. It looks like a little fucking rickety motherfucker.
It's just like a street bike. Yeah, it's nothing special, and he drives that down a bunch of abandoned subways, and that's where his Batcave is in this version, which I think they're arguing is underneath the big tower. Which that kind of makes sense in kind of a.
Did that in Batman Begins? Remember all the subway tunnels and U-train tracks led to Wayne Tower as the main plan?
Yeah, so it makes sense. The fact that he's not having to deal with like fucking urban explorers and fucking people trying to break in is a different thing. But whatever. But he's got this big, great, dramatic Batcave that you see for maybe 2 scenes. Like they really don't make the usage.
It's not a Batcave. It's like a train terminus. The end of the line.
Yeah, it's like a disused subway station.
Yeah.
Which we've seen before in like James Bond or whatever. It's a trope to have your base in a subway station.
It's not the London Underground, but it's like a big boy.
Yeah, and I think it is based on like in the kind of American like early of 20th century, like if you were rich enough you could have these kind of like private little underground stations to yourself, which makes sense for the Waynes. So yeah, it all ties in, but they hardly ever use it. You see the car like slowly being assembled during the first half of the movie.
It's got a big dust sheet over it, and you see the engine block out getting worked on and stuff. Yeah,
but you never see him actually working on it. No. It's just in the background. You see some shots of like the parts for it or whatever.
It's hinted that,
and then it cuts to him like using it, presumably for the first time, because there's this whole scene where like you see the car and the Penguin sees the car and the car starts to like start up. And some lights go on, some noises start to happen, and the V8 comes on. It's like a Mad Max V8.
It's terrifying. The rumbling coming from it. It's like this big black spectre of a vehicle,
and it's this weird, like blocky shape, like at the end of an alleyway. And the Penguin's staring at it, like, what the hell's that? And a few more lights come on, some red lights at the front, and then this weird, like high pitched whining starts. And it increases, and the Penguin's still looking at it, and it's like a good 15 seconds of like back and forth.
The Batman, the ba 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 ba, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, this is so tense. What's gonna happen?" And what happened, Dave?
You're like, right, he's gonna run down the Penguin or whatever. The lights start to go on. It moves forward, maybe a foot. He stalls it.
And all the bad guys go like, right, we're out here. At that one moment, their concentration has been broken. Like, this wee dick stalled the fucking big car. Everyone's like, jump in their cars, I'm off.
Which leads to a 10-minute chase because Batman fucked the stall, which I loved, but I can understand if you're like, no, my Batman has to be the man.
No, I like the chase scene. A lot of it's touched upon in the trailer. In fact, the trailer shows you the end of the chase scene, which I feel was a bit fucking See, a lot of the trailer, I feel the trailer showed you a wee bit too much for this film.
Oh yeah, that's a
Like-
common problem with trailers these days.
See, but the trailer for this film, it would have been a lot better if they didn't show us Paul Dano.
Yeah.
Because you don't see Paul Dano, the Riddler, out of his outfit until the last half an hour of the film, where the police eventually catch up with him. It would have been really good to keep him as this like enigmatic spectre, because you go into the film and you know this is Paul Dano acting like a wee pedo. You know what I mean? Like,
No, but they even play into that. The whole scene where Bruce Wayne like goes into the funeral for the dead mayor that started the whole story into an event. Like he interacts with a couple of people where he's like, "Oh shit, are you the Riddler?" Because some guys are like, "You know what? Fuck the rich. Yeah, fuck them. Especially that Bruce Wayne. Who are you, by the way?" But they like play off like the Batman's starting to get sketched out. That like anyone could be the fucking Riddler. Like you could have lent into that and have the Riddler been a total fucking like, because with that voice and that mask, he could have been played by any cunt. Like you would not know it was Paul Dano at all.
see, if you didn't know it was Paul Dano, do you know what I felt that was very much up until, I would say up until, but it's a lot of the film. There's a lot of Saw vibes the Riddler gives off.
Oh, absolutely.
Like he captures one of the like chiefs of police. It was Trevor at EastEnders that got killed with a hammer off a little more.
Yeah.
But big fat Trevor with a beard, and I knew you'd catch him. Hey, Commissioner Gordon, what are you doing here?
Yeah, because he comes in, I'm like, who the fuck is this fucking two slice of pizza asshole?
No, he captures him, and he does the whole Joker filming your victim thing, and the guy's got a hamster cage on his head.
It's a very elaborate thing to get a rat to eat a man's face.
Like, yeah, he's going to let these. This is like a Saw type contraption where he's going to let the rats eat this guy's head, but then about 10 minutes later it cuts off and goes, "Oh no, he actually injected him with arsenic and killed him because he was a rat and arsenic's a rat poison." But you were leading us up to the Saw type of enigmatic figure where, he's going to let this guy eat his own, like these rats eat this guy's head. This is going to be fucking nuts.
I think the counter argument to that is that the Riddler's a pussy.
No, I feel like a lot of the film was he's got guys in a lot of Saw type situations where he captures the DA and he puts a bomb collar around his neck and forces him to drive into a church and answer some riddles. You're like, this is very Saw-like.
Yeah, I mean, that bit with the riddles was exceptional. Like, so we're just doing Saw, I guess?
Yeah. But see, I feel like they borrowed quite a lot from that, and it would have been really good to keep up this Saw-like enigma. But in Saw, you find out who Jigsaw is an old fucking guy. In this, you go in knowing that the Riddler is the wee pedo boy, Paul Dano.
So you're just waiting for him to turn up?
Yeah, you're just waiting for him to turn up. Like, it would have been good to build it up, like, who is this mentally unhinged individual? But you know it's a wee nonce. And it kind of robs it a wee bit from it, robs a bit of the mystery, because it's meant to be...
Oh yeah, most of the movie is the Batman being like, who the fuck is this Riddler and what is his problem?
And Batman doing a fucking terrible job of catching him. He solves a wee easy puzzle at the start, but see, for the rest of it, Batman is making a fucking arse of this. He is not the master detective, the world's greatest detective that everybody knows him as. He's stumbling about like translations of Spanish. Like, what does this mean? El Rata o Gata or something?
Fucking Google it, mate. Don't rely on Alfred to be like, well, I fucked a Spanish woman once, and I think it says the flying rat.
The rat with
wings. At which point, like, how many fucking takes is it for you as the Batman to be like the flying rat?
The El Rata clue is the rat with wings. I can't remember El Rata Agato.
It's El Rata URL, and he types in a fucking website. I'm like, well, I wouldn't have got that one.
That was a leap.
that was a fucking jump.
See, I feel like a satisfying detective story is Seven. The film Seven. That's your satisfying detective
this film
story.
is given like Seven vibes.
It's
like
nowhere near Seven.
They're trying for it.
They're trying.
A lot of scenes were like moody, rainy cityscape.
That's one of my problems with this film, though. I feel like the writing with this film. The film was written by an edgy teenager who thinks they know what writing is. The person was not a good enough writer to do a Seven. They weren't a good enough writer to do an interesting detective plot. They weren't good enough writer, I feel, to make Batman an interesting individual, because it just boiled into me as being like a spoiled, whiny teenager. They didn't write Alfred a good enough part? Like you saying that, what do you call him? Gollum didn't do a particular. Like you didn't mind him as Alfred. I feel like he didn't have a lot to work with.
Oh, absolutely. Like he worked with the best of what he's got, but there's not much there.
Like the Penguin, Colin Farrell was the Penguin. Colin Farrell's not got a lot to work with, but fuck me, he's doing a lot of work with what he's got. Like they've not given him a lot of interesting lines to say, but his delivery is like, "Hey, how you doing, this guy?"
Yeah, like he's having fun. Like I say, there's a few like Colin Farrell like snapbacks when someone says something to him. It's like, oh shit, that is Colin Farrell in there.
Paul Dano's performances, as much as I feel like somebody has ripped off of Keith Ledger's Joker and Saw, and internet culture as a whole.
And yeah, just being a fucking weird 4chaner.
How do you feel about Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon?
I enjoyed him. He had a few fun moments, but again, he felt kind of phoned in.
I don't feel Jeffrey Wright is the, if you've got what I've deemed.
He played Gordon well, I'd argue.
Yeah, but from what I see as like a film that's not got good writing in it, certain people were making the best of this writing as what they could. Standouts being Paul Dano and Colin Farrell. Jeffrey Wright is not a man to make a mountain out of a small heap of script that you give him.
He will quietly just read the lines.
He was doing his job, and he did a good job, and it was, I wouldn't say it was bad at all, but his only good scene I feel like it was when they capture the Penguin, and Batman and Commissioner Gordon are interrogating the Penguin, and they're having a lot of back and forth, accusing Penguin of being this rat with wings, and they're having a lot of good arguments, and Penguin's like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's not me. And like making them both look pretty foolish, to be fair.
He's like, haven't you guys fucking ever had a Google Translate? That's not how it...
That is Jeffrey Wright's best moment in that film, when he's having a high-paced, fast argument with Colin Farrell.
I don't know, I enjoyed the moments where Gordon's over the cover for Batman with the rest of the police. He's like, mate, fucking work with me here. Like, there's obviously the scene before he busts out the police station, but the other one as well, where he takes Batman to the first crime scene, and then fucking Trevor from EastEnders turns up, and he's like, get that fucking guy out of here. Gordon's like, mate, we really need to go. And then like a couple other times after Batman's been staring at an orphan child, he's like, mate, we need to not be here.
It's important to say that in this film, Jim Gordon is not Commissioner Gordon.
No, he's
still Lieutenant Gordon at this point.
His boss gets killed, but I don't think he's even made like Commissioner. He's just Lieutenant.
He's got a lot of freedom in this film, Jim Gordon, because nobody seems to. There's a lot of times where Jim Gordon's like, "Uh-oh, I'm going to be in trouble for this one."
Yeah, the bit.
He's absolutely not.
So one of the bits I enjoyed was the Riddler sends them an obtuse clue, which leads to a car which has a man's thumb along with a USB stick to cue the joke thumb drive, which is a nice little back and forth between Batman and Commissioner Gordon. Gordon just plugs it into his fucking laptop. It immediately like runs a program that sends all of these compromising photos of his bosses to every media, like fucking newspaper, TV station, and Gordon's just like, "Oh, I'm going to catch trouble for that," and it's never mentioned again. When presumably Gordon would be having the fucking shit reaming of his lifetime because of this. Like the bit, so Batman gets like arrested at one point. Taken to the police station.
He gets caught in an explosion and knocked out. And
after the bomb goes off that kills the DA, he wakes up at a police station, and the police are rightfully like, "Well, we fucking got you now." So Batman starts to try and fight all of the police. And this is like this is like the Dark Knight Joker style interview room, you know, plain brick walls, a table, but it's full of like 60 police officers. Yeah. And Batman tries more than once to fight his way out, at which point Gordon has to be like, "Mate, fucking knock it off. Give me 2 minutes to calm down these cunts." And then after he gets everyone out of the room, Gordon's like, "I need to get you out of here. Like, here's my keys. Go left, go right, fucking up to the roof, whatever, get out of here." Batman then proceeds to throw not a pulled punch, just straight up punches Gordon in the face. And then one of the best scenes of the movie for me, Batman running down some corridors whilst 1,000 policemen come out of every doorway.
It's like the part, remember, in Batman Begins, where he's escaping he encounters the Scarecrow, and he has to escape down the stairwell, and he uses the bats as a decoy. He uses his grappling hook to go up the middle of like a spiral.
Like painfully slow.
Yeah. And everyone's shooting the shit out of him as he goes like ping, 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 and it's like ow, 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 ow. And that's when he uses his wingsuit to jump off the roof.
Yeah, no, just like the scene of like Batman going down the corridor and then 40 policemen running past him is that's perfect. That's worth price submission for me. That's my Batman.
They touched on that point later on as well. Like, it was a point where I didn't like the Batman point in this one, where like he meets Jim Gordon a while later, and he's like, "Oh, Batman, you could have fucking at least pulled that punch you hit me with." And Batman's like, "I did pull the punch." And everyone's like, "Oh, you're such a badass, Batman." Oh.
No, it's just Batman being like an autistic dickhead and going to.
But I feel that you like Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon.
I like he wasn't given much to work with. Like again, like the bit of back and forth being like thumb drive, and like Gordon's like, "Man, fuck this guy." That was fun. Like you need little moments like that. The bit where like the president-elect lady gets shot, and he like drags her off immediately after being like, "I wouldn't go out there if I was you, love." Like it's fucked.
I say that this is one of the Batman films where you see Gordon and Batman working together quite a lot. Like
you get their relationship.
Yeah, like you don't see how they met in the film. You see the relationship already established, but you see them meeting and hanging about quite a lot, which you got a bit of in the Dark Knight trilogy. Don't get me wrong, but no, in this one you do see a lot of their kind of friendship, and you see in a lot of the Dark Knight trilogy with who played Commissioner Gordon in the Dark Knight? Gary Oldman.
It's more like Yada energy.
Gary Oldman is talking at Batman, and Batman just like, yeah, because this is the answer, obviously. But in this one, you feel that the two of them are collaborating.
That whole scene with Penguin, where there's a real back and forth between them, where Batman's like, "Oh wait, did we get this wrong?"
And Penguin's like,
"I think we got this wrong."
Penguin hits him with, "What is this? Good cop, bad cop?" Which is a bit corny.
Again, that is something that like Colin Farrell is perfect to do those kind of little catty backlines. It's just a shame he's completely gone in the face makeup.
Yeah, it's really weird. The weird choice. Like, why did you not just hire a fat Italian American?
Like, there's enough of the Sopranos cast still alive. Like
you know what? My recommendation was Paulie Walnuts to play the Penguin. John fucking Turturro.
So they have, was it Carmine Falcone?
They have what I like to call the added on gangster mobster aspect of the Batman films that I find fucking boring as fuck.
Yeah, so
because you get this fucking suite of ridiculous, insane villainy. I mean, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do some fucking old-fashioned mobsters because people like mobsters.
And it's not even fun like Sopranos mobsters, like Paulie Walnuts. It's John Turturro, who's doing a decent enough job playing vague ethnicity. There we go.
He looks like I've always seen John Turturro as a Middle Eastern style gentleman. Like when he was playing, was it Jesus in Big Lebowski? Was it Jesus his name?
Jesus.
Jesus.
I think it's meant to be Jesus. They made that whole sequel about him, which bad times.
He always takes me as like a kind of a slender Middle Eastern gentleman. And not like
I get like Latino vibes from him. Yeah. He's meant to be like a Brooklyn boy.
He's a brown man. He's not white.
He's playing Carmine
Falcone, who was played
by
Eric Roberts.
Very kind of like what's his name from Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad?
Giancarlo
Esposito.
Yeah.
Think him, but without the threat. Like he's a lot more jovial. He's a lot more kind of like, hey, there's no threat to the man, even though he is portrayed as done quite a lot of murders and doing a murder in the film. But there's no threat to him.
No, nice guy mobster. You know the mobster that's reached the level where he doesn't have to pretend to be nasty to people because people fear him so much. But in this film, as you say, he plays like quite a nice, timid mobster that you don't feel the threat from that everyone else in the film feels.
Yeah, because a big point of the film is realizing that he has everyone under his control. Like he has bought out the city essentially, and it's portrayed as this vast, kind of deep threat and conspiracy to the city. But it's like it doesn't seem to be threatening anyone particularly. Like he's a mobster, but you don't see him doing any shady shit.
He's endgame mobster. He's level 99. He doesn't need to worry about anyone else beneath him because he's untouchable. Because all of the crimes, all of the murders that the Riddler is instigating is to uncover the big conspiracy that rules over Gotham, which is headed, but you find out that the rat amongst them all is Carmine Falcone, the big mobster.
Because they do a couple of fake outs where obviously they think it's the Penguin, and there's a few other kind of like, is it this guy? And it's like, no, it turns out to be Falcone. It's like, alright, fair enough. And they do this whole thing with like Thomas Wayne setting up this renewal fund, this kind of like charity organization that just gets turned into kind of like a money laundering scheme by the mob.
Yeah.
And that's how the Riddler ties together all of the kind of threads, because as a forensic accountant, he is the guy who goes through the books and goes, wait a minute, that doesn't add up. So that kind of works out that like that's how he discovered it. And then he's gone down this whole kind of like vigilante justice thing, inspired by the Batman.
Yeah, he sees the Batman as a sort of idol, but see, at the same time, you're like,
because when he realizes like, that Batman fucking hates him, he does the kind of full Spurg. It's like, no, it's not meant to be like this.
No, he starts hitting himself in the head and stuff. But no, I feel like the Riddler being the clever man that works out all of this corruption, he works out the source of it, he works out who all the players are.
Well, that could have been enough.
No, but it's a throwaway line, because they mentioned just in passing that he was a forensic accountant. See, unless you're listening for that one wee line justifies that, that's how the Riddler managed all this stuff. He's obviously a highly intelligent guy with not a lot going on. But that's a throwaway line that kind of describes how he was able to untie all the strings of this conspiracy. But the John Turturro stuff, the Carmine Falcone stuff, is very much the B plot
of the movie.
It's the B plot to justify
He literally turns up halfway through the movie, and then he's portrayed as like a friend of the Waynes and stuff, and it's like, okay.
And they tie him into being Catwoman's dad, and that killed his mum, and that he was the one who killed Catwoman's friend, which embroils her in this whole conspiracy. That it's very much like the boogeyman to tie everything together.
Things up. I'm telling you, it feels very much kind of like we're going to do this origins movie, but without the origin. You know?
It's just a lazy thing, because they did that with the Dark Knight trilogy as well. That the mob was the big bad, that was the downfall of Gotham. They just tie it all together. Clearly, Gotham's problems are not just organised crime. There's a mentality in Gotham that breeds crime.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fucking nutters in Gotham. I don't know if you've noticed.
I feel like their mental health services need an investigation, yeah. But a lot of these guys could just be on some sort of prescription.
So all of the Batman films are who's the big bad people pulling the strings. It's like the Kingpin in the New York Marvel universe. The Kingpin is the guy, the titular Kingpin that's tied to all the crimes. He's the big boss making all the wheels turn. Kingpin is a larger than life villain. He is a villain on his own.
I feel he was played very well by fucking what's his name, Vincent D'Onofrio. He did a nice mix of like, yeah, I'm a guy who will fucking beat you to death with a car door, but I like culture.
And John Turturro playing a slender head mob.
It was just zero threat to him.
It was like, in The Simpsons, where you've got Fat Tony, he's got like a tall, like lanky sidekick with a black afro, and he's like, "Hey, boss!" That's what John Turturro was like, but he was the boss, and he was meant to be like quite understated and threatening. But I feel like John Turturro, when you see him and stuff, you see him as a comedic,
threatening dude. No.
He's a comedic character. He's not a guy that you see like, see him walking the scene.
Like in the Big Lebowski, he's set up as like a villain, but at the same time, he's also set up to be a joke. Like
a small time villain.
But
he's not a big time fucking threat to the world. And whereas I feel like even in the Dark Knight films, you had Eric Roberts playing Carmine Falcone. He's
an authentic shithead.
Yeah, he's not a good actor, but he's more believable as a smooth talking mob boss than John Turturro could ever be.
I think they had I think it might have been one of the Soprano guys as the other one, not Falcone.
Mark one. That was that British actor.
No, because he's in the we're jumping forward here, but in the Batman Begins, there's that whole scene where Bruce Wayne goes to the club and he talks to the guy who isn't Eric Roberts. He's just like some fat Guido.
You're thinking of Marconi. Let me see if I can pull the guy's fucking.
But he has that whole scene where it's like, so what if I had your parents killed? So
it was the guy in the Full Monty. You know the rich guy that's like the
yeah. I would have put him down as like some Sopranos level trash.
No,
I was thinking maybe fucking Johnny Sacks from Soprano, but then I was like, no, it's definitely not Johnny Sacks because I remember Johnny Sacks. You remember him, the chain smoker one that died from chain smoking. Cried at his fucking daughter's wedding.
Oh no!
My reputation for him plummeted.
Eric Roberts didn't play Carmine Falcone. This British man, Tom Wilkinson, is the man that played Carmine Falcone.
That's the guy I was thinking of.
Yeah, like that was. I thought that was like
because there's that whole scene where like Christian Bale goes into his club and he's like, "Yeah, I killed your parents."
You're a brave man walking in here type stuff.
Yeah. Because after that, that's when he goes off and does the fucking Blue Rose bullshit.
Even from a middle-aged fucking English actor, I feel it was more threatening than John Turturro, who's essentially a Latino Mr. Bean.
Well, yeah, because that scene in the Batman Begins had the vibe of like, yeah, this is my club and I could have you killed. But I'm not going to because what are you going to fucking do? You're a little posh boy. There was a real kind of dismissal of him. Yeah. Whereas you don't get any of that from Turturro. No.
No, man.
So, anything else you can think of to cover in this movie?
Not like we like.
I think I mentioned this off microphone, but I do like Catwoman in this movie. There's some clunky lines, the white privilege line, stuff like that. But I do enjoy her she feels more real than Anne Hathaway's Catwoman. Anne Hathaway's Catwoman always very much felt like a character. Like she's a posh cat burglar, and it never felt real.
Like a plastic against the aristocracy.
Whereas this Catwoman is like she works in a club and she deals on the side. It's like, oh, I'm getting a more rounded feel for this character.
You don't get Master Thief off of this Catwoman. You get a hustler.
Knows how to fucking handle herself.
A hustler, someone that was raised in this environment.
Cardi B, kind of.
Even though in this film, I feel like they had a weird obsession about fucking Zoe Kravitz's chest. Like I thought
yes, but those boots. There was a lot of scenes where Batman was like, them boots.
Like the when she first encounters Batman, when Batman's interrogating the Penguin, she walks in with the swagger and the kinky boots.
She's doing the proper kind of like sexy walk, yeah.
And she's wearing like the wife beater, Renee Bralin. I was like, it's a bit kind of weird. And then you've got the bit where Batman's doing his peeping Tom through her apartment window.
Yeah.
And watches are getting changed.
He's going full fucking George McFly.
And something that I noticed during like the kind of pre-release window is through the advertising as well, they increased the size of Zoe Kravitz's chest throughout the advertising, and it was pointed out going, if you wanted just a pair of tits, just hire a pair of tits. Don't hire someone that's not just a pair of tits.
I felt like she wasn't particularly like super titted.
Someone was trying to make her that way.
Like she's like, that's the thing. Like Catwoman's, she can't have big tits. She's got a fucking be all nimbly bimbly.
Nimbly bimbly.
To use the Super Troopers reference, but fucking like she portrays it well enough. Like you get the feeling like, okay, she's again like Batman. I don't think she's had training, but she's had practice. She's
well, thinking about it, like when you look at all the women that have played like Catwoman throughout the years, was it Eartha Kitt the last black Catwoman?
I think so, yeah. Because then you have Michelle Pfeiffer, arguably Halle Berry.
Oh well,
she had a standalone Catwoman movie, so.
Oh, are we counting that though?
Don't technically count.
In universe,
we're not covering this on the list because we would be here till 6 a.m. But yeah, I'm told like it's some Catwoman fans like it, but that wasn't a movie.
Zoe Kravitz
got
did a
Anne
serviceable job.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of her. Like, she's very much of like the kind of, my dad was famous, so I get to pick a career in the industry. That interview where Robert Pattinson's talking about Final Fantasy VII, she comes off as quite a dick. Like, you could easily be like, oh, okay, fine, I've never played them. Okay. Yeah. But she comes along and expresses like, oh, video games, that's a stupid boy thing.
Is your choice of love interest in this game the woman that punches things or the woman that heals you? That seems a bit...
And to be fair, Robert Pattinson's not explaining it great. But at the same time, you can tell this is a guy who loves it, who's never had to explain it to a woman before.
It was like somebody that, like, with Catwoman, you know what you're walking into with the role. And it feels like maybe she was kind of against being the overly sexualised femme fatale. Which they didn't, I would say they didn't overly sexualise her, but compared to modern cinema, like, that's about as much as you can overly sexualise someone without someone going, oh, wait a minute. And no, I felt like she was a not bad foil as to making Batman realise that vengeance isn't the way, because in this one, Zoe Kravitz is very much all about vengeance. She's got like, she's got a chip on her shoulder. Like, she has problems in this film and she's wanting to slaughter cunts left and right. And Batman's like, well, just chill out a bit, hen. Like, I like you and all that, so don't do anything until you phone me. And then she goes and does stuff without phoning him. Madness ensues. But no, I feel like she was a not bad foil to the way that Paul Dano's orphan status made Bruce Wayne realise what he could have become without his privilege. That maybe Catwoman helps him realise that vengeance can be quite ugly.
Yeah.
Because he does a lot of preaching to her about how vengeance is the wrong thing. I was like, mate, the first scene of the film, you called yourself Vengeance, you edgelord cunt. No, it seems like Batman is doing a lot of learning in this one, and like,
it feels like set up to get like, okay, by the end of this movie, we have got a fully rounded Batman who understands that he needs to be more than just the Batman. And moving forward, we've got a nice clean slate. We've got a couple of established villains set up. We've got a couple of plot threads we can turn into things if we want to. Catwoman or the kid that could be Robin, or, you know, they've got threads. If we don't make it movie, no big fucks. We've made a good movie, but they've put all the kind of hooks to just quickly hook another fucking sequel on.
I would say that, see, when you get to the end and Batman realises that he needs to be there for the people and not just for himself to get his vengeance, I wouldn't say it's particularly earned. Like, it seems like in Batman's, at the end of the film, after all the disaster has occurred and all the threats have been put to bed, he's helping load civilians into medical transport helicopters and stuff and holding their hands as they're pulled away into the helicopter to get a medical service. Like, and he talks about all the stuff he's learned through this film. It doesn't feel like you saw him learn all that stuff.
No. They kind of speed run.
We can sit here and say, oh, maybe he learned that off of the Riddler, like how his privilege saved him from this life. But it seems like him needing to be there for the people was very much shoehorned in at the end, because at no point does it seem as if he's there for the people. Like, during the car chase with the Penguin, it's one of those Superman situations where there's so much collateral damage.
Like 20 people died in that car crash.
There's a multi-car pile-up in the motorway, and Bruce Wayne does a Grand Theft Auto 3 of, oh, there's a ramp, I'm going to drive up that and do the stunt jump over it. And there's a fucking flaming carcass. Bam, 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 bam. But he's jumping over the flaming body of a trucker. The trucker's like, but I'm dying, son. And he's like, oh, fuck you.
And Batman's like, but I don't have to save you.
And Batman kills people in this one. There's a lot of people at times where he doesn't kill them directly, but he's fighting armed people, and he pulls the gun from the armed person,
right,
and he aims it at someone else, and that person pulls the trigger and shoots someone else. It happens at quite a few points of the film, and there's points like where he's leathering people, and you're like, that guy's not going to be in Batman 2. No, I feel like the amount of anger and pain he puts out as being this vengeance character does not match up with the I need to be helping the people.
No, I get that.
Towards the end, when
they didn't work on that enough.
He does one scene at the end where
He does the flare and he fucking...
Oh no, all that, right? So the Riddler, when he's been captured and he's in Arkham Asylum, reveals that that's not all to his plan. There was more. And Batman slowly uncovers that he set bombs up along the water wall that surrounds Gotham and plans to flood Gotham. So sets off all these bombs, and the Riddler's fucking going off his nut with happiness watching all these bombs go off. He's like, I'm going to sink this city, I'm going to clean it, literally, with fucking dirty water. And everyone converges in this like big kind of stadium type arena.
It's called Gotham Square Garden. It's a rip-off of Madison Square Garden.
It's not like American football stadium.
But it's a big indoor stadium,
yeah. And that's where the Riddler's last plan comes into effect, where all the people he's radicalised online,
his followers,
with rifles. Now Batman catches up, leathers them all, saves the day. But there's a really weird shot of Batman's finished leathering people, and this is after Batman gets shot in the chest with a double-barrel shotgun. And all of a sudden, a metallic-style rafter connected to an electricity supply breaks and starts swinging across the floodwater, and there's lots of people in the floodwater. Now Batman jumps off the balcony and gets onto the cable that's carrying this big electric rafter across the water and cuts the cable. So obviously there's no chance of the electricity going out of the water and frying everybody, right? One, he cuts the cable below where his hand is, above where his hand is, holding onto the cable, so then proceeds to fall into the water, looking like a pure dick, right? It is completely unnecessary. It's like there is no concern towards the threat of the people sheltering in a stadium at all from the snipers. He's like, I'm going to leather all these snipers. He doesn't pay attention to the people probably dying into flood water below or like fucking drowning and shit. But he dives onto this swinging rafter, cuts the cable and falls into the water with this swinging rafter that's now thankfully no longer electrified. It's such a fucking weird choice to throw in right at the end of the film, and it goes back to what we were saying about we feel that there's been like some sort of editing trouble with this film, that it must have been edited
like
down.
This film has spent a long time in the oven, so to speak, when it comes to like editing and post production. So I feel like perhaps people have like overthought stuff.
Mm-hmm. And like someone's throwing in at the last minute, oh,
we could do this thing, yeah.
No, we need to show Batman saving people. Don't get me wrong, see, after he does this move where he cuts off the swinging rafter and drops into the water, he has quite a nice moment where he's covered in flood water, the whole place is in darkness, and he lights a flare.
He leads the people out.
He reaches a hand into some rubble and pulls out some survivors, including the wee boy that you think is going to be Robin at one point, and saves the day, and it shows him helping the people. But this is like the last 5 minutes of the film.
It's not, though.
What?
You have that scene, and then like it leads to the scene where like he's helping the person onto the helivac or whatever, and they hold hands for a second, and then it cuts back to Arkham, and they have the Riddler and Joker scene, and then it cuts back to fucking the Necropolis, and they have that scene.
So it's the last scene where you see Batman do something.
Yeah, and he looks up to the sky, and he's like, "Okay, I've grown as a Batman."
Yeah,
and you're like, "Right, cut, film, done."
It's like a last throw of the dice to show Batman helping the people, because Batman's not helping the people in this film.
And they make that point because at the beginning of the movie you have the guy who's saved by Batman who's like, please don't fucking hurt me. Yeah. Like he's just as terrified as Batman, more so than the fucking criminals were.
And he doesn't go to the guy that he saved, are you alright? All it was all about for Batman was leathering the criminals.
And the film's meant to be about him realising it's more than that, and they don't show it.
It's not earned. That's what I'm saying. Like, do you not think it was like a complete snap to him jumping onto that rafter, cutting it, and saving the day?
Yeah.
It was completely unearned, because throughout the entire film, he's just leathering people, killing people.
I argue that he's still full of a lot of drugs from that shot.
He's got no concern for his fellow man throughout this film. Was leathering the baddies, but not caring about the victims. About chasing the Penguin, but killing about 50 people on the motorway in a big pile-up.
I'll argue that wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
That was the Penguin.
You see him showing concern for them, though.
Oh, absolutely.
He does a stunt Vin Diesel jump over the flaming
And he
bodies.
slowly walks to the Penguin's car.
On an ambulance for his cunts, mate. No, and at the end, he's leathering the snipers. He's having a great time leathering them, but he puts an afterthought eventually into the last thing he does in the film of
When the room actually starts flooding itself. Like, the rest of Gotham's already gone.
Yeah.
Like, the death toll in this must be thousands, hundreds of thousands. Like, they show the whole city just getting fucked. And it's a real kind of like Godzilla stadium flooding situation.
But no, I felt like it was a very last stab to show some growth. When you're talking about the threads being there to follow on from that, that was their very, and they shoehorned it in right at the end to go, oh, he cares about the people as well. And even then, when he's putting the woman into the helicopter and she grabs his arm, he looks at her for a wee second like,
Mate.
why are you with me?
I'm Batman, love.
But no, I feel like that was, but yeah, it's a COVID film. Again, a COVID film. I feel like editing came into it a bit.
Dune was a COVID movie.
Yeah, but June was a well done film. There was no, the special effects in June, pristine, nothing bad.
The soundtrack, yeah.
June evolved across bam, 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 and beyond it.
Well, yeah, if you just had June and it was just like that intro where it's the fucking kettle drums and the fucking throat singer, it would get a bit generic. But yeah, it went everywhere. It had lady singer voices that sound like dead chicken ants. You had the goddamn bagpipes. You know, you had that kind of. There's an amazing like making of documentary where Hans Zimmer talks about the soundtrack. He's like, I wanted to make instruments that don't exist, and he's weird in German, and it always blows my mind that he was completely irrelevant, but he was the main keyboard player for the 1986 Doctor Who charity single "Doctor in Distress," which was a single made to try and keep the series on the air. It's very bad. It's like peak 80s shit pop. Think like Live Aid, but worse. It's just like, mate, you really you were doing jobs in the early days. I guess you were like, fuck it, yeah, why not?
No, if I was to summarise the Batman, I'd be like good performances from certain people. Cinematography.
Well, it looked
fucking
beautiful, yeah.
looked beautiful. Like that scene that you mentioned where him leading the people out of the water with the flare. Some beautiful shit, man. Good cinematography. The score, for how limited it was powerful. It just outstays its welcome a wee bit. But yeah,
There's a bit in the kind of like in love theme or whatever you want to call it, where it sounded a little bit like it was riffing on previous Batman. Like you could feel like a little bit of like kind of the themes. In the same way that there's that soundtrack song for Fallout 4 Far Harbor that uses the same kind of chord progression as New Vegas. You know, the dun, dun.
it makes it similar. But
You know, it uses it in different notes, but it's recognisable enough for you to be like, I feel like they used some of that in the background
relatable.
soundtrack. There's a little bit of maybe like even like Tim Burton Batman or something. I'm not sure. I'd have to re-listen to it, but I felt like they were definitely trying to echo back. And like I say, this was a film stuffed full of. They were trying to cram it full of fucking Batman references. Like at the end, Catwoman talks about going to fucking Bloodhaven or whatever, and that's some fucking. That's where Nightwing or whatever lives. You know, it's one of those like shitty outskirts of Gotham that you really don't want to live in. So I felt like they were trying to get like the Marvel. Oh, we got to get these references in. And I feel like it could have done better, a little bit more standalone. I feel that entire like Joker Riddler scene, that's your post credit shit. Like I don't need that in the main movie. Like that's as bad as Batman Begins ending with the fucking and we found this card. It's the Joker card. And you're like,
Batman Begins.
we're gonna get there, don't worry.
It's like people claim there was a Dark Knight trilogy. There was not. There was Batman Begins and then 2 Dark Knight films.
Oh yeah, we can discuss that, like how tonally different that first one feels like. But I think like that's us rounded up on the Batman. So do you want to give a score because you were talking about a review score?
I feel like the way I review things is equating them to something else. And Munchy Box being the title of the show, I would need to equate it to like a Munchy Box type of scale. So your Munchy Box comes with like different levels of ingredient. We have your salad and your pita bread being like your tier.
Yeah. If we're going by like the internet tier system, they're down at like F or whatever.
And then you've got like chips, which is like your below average tier. And then you've got your pakoras, which range from average tier all the way up to pretty good. Then you've got your top tier doner meat. So I would not say the Batman is a doner meat. I'm going to give this Batman film a vegetable pakora out of Munchy Box.
So alright, but could be better.
A 3 out of 5 on your Kinsel scale, but
No, that's a fair. I think I would give it like a chicken pakora. Not so far as high as like a doner, but I'm quite happy with that.
the chicken pakora is like a 4 out of 5, so that's pretty strong taste.
Yeah, no. Obviously, you've seen it twice now, and it's a long movie, so we'll see how. We'll get to it, but I saw The Dark Knight Rises 5 times in the cinema. So.
I enjoy Dark Knight Rises. I understand it's flawed,
But you're going with what, mushroom pakora?
Not vegetable pakora.
Vegetable pakora.
Because mushroom pakora is a different beast and it's better than veg.
And I'll go with chicken pakora.
I'll tell you what, no, I'll give it a vegetable pakora, but in some kebab sauce. It's like a 3.5 out of 5.
Get a tinge of niceness around the outside.